Hello, this is Eric Morse Eskenazi. Thanks for tuning in to the latest episode of the Iraq Dispatches podcast. This podcast episode features an interview with Kym Jackson, who's the author of The Hollywood Survival Guide for Actors and founder of the Secret Actors Society. Kym is a very passionate individual who loves discussing about the craft of getting great roles in film and television and what it's like to deal with all different aspects of the entertainment industry. Hello, thanks for listening to the Erratic Dispatches podcast. We'll be back shortly after a brief break. Hello, I've been using Anchor.fm now for about almost a year for the podcast Erratic Dispatches, which is distributed through Anchor.fm. It's completely free to use, very easy, and any audio that you upload or record through the website, it will be, you can use it to organize your audio files, and once your podcasts are ready to submit, it will be available to stream within at least 8 different streaming sites. So Kym, do you mind starting off with talking about what inspired you to get into the acting field? Were there any particular actors or acting teachers growing up that really kickstarted you to get into it full time as a professional?
I, when I was a kid, I did a play when I was about 4 years old. It was Peter Pan, and excuse me, I forgot my lines, and the whole when I ran across stage to get the script from the teacher, which I'm sure was 10 lines long, I kind of said a few things to the crowd and made them laugh, and I think I suddenly realized that I enjoyed performing. And for me, it's funny, I didn't have any, I guess at that age I was so little. For me, I grew up on Julia Roberts and Sandra Bullock, and they're still my favorite kinds of films to watch and actresses to watch, because I'm just such a rom-com fan. I'm such a fan of popular movies. I'm not I'm not as into the edgy, independent sort of stuff, which is so funny because that's a lot of the stuff that I do, as an actress. But I just love watching a Cameron Diaz movie or a Sandra Bullock movie. Or, I don't know why, but it just, for me, I guess my brain is kind of going a million miles a minute all the time. I assume a lot of people, which is why I sort of got into meditation and stuff. But movies just shuttle that down for me. I disappear, and all there is what's happening in the movie. And I think something about that is a meditation of itself. And I like the idea of being involved with that for other people. And plus, I love acting. So much fun. Oh my god, it's the best thing ever, and it's so cathartic as well. I was a really angry kid. I was a friendly kid till I was about 10, but then as a teenager I turned into one of those angry teenagers, and acting is a really good outlet for that, as well. They're all like, oh my god, that was amazing. You're like, yeah, no, it was just me emoting.
So I really loved your book. I found it so insightful. If I was pursuing acting, your book would be something I would carry with me all over the place. The Hollywood Survival Guide for Actors. So tell us about what inspired you to write this book, and also how long were you working in LA with doing different acting projects?
I moved to LA when I was 22, and I didn't know anyone. This is pre-Facebook, pre-social media, really. I think MySpace might have existed back then, but I kind of went there with a production company that hired me to go out. I met them at the Cannes Film Festival, and that was my goal at Cannes. I was like, I'll just go to this place where there's all these filmmakers, and I'll get one of them to give me a job as a PA or whatever. And that's exactly what happened. I ended up working for them for about 6 months, but the problem was the actors that I interacted with through the production company were all working actors. And so when I would say to them, how do I get started? They would just say, well, you just need to get an agent, and then your agent will call you with auditions. And I was like, well, it can't just be that. I did around 50 unpaid short films in Australia before I left. And I'd kind of gotten them myself through online submissions, and emailing filmmakers directly, and I sort of thought to myself, well, that stuff has to exist in LA, which it totally does. It's huge. It's way bigger than it ever was when I was in Australia back then. And you can. I know actors that have made an entire career living just on independent work that they book
Mhm.
for themselves, and they don't even
Mhm.
work through representation.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
as I was going along, I would meet one person in one place and they would give me information that would send me down this wormhole of forward propulsion, I suppose, in my career. And then I'd maybe meet someone else who might, in a class or something, who might help me with something else and give me one other piece of information. It was so frustrating because I was, there were books that were written already, but they seemed to include either more acting strategies or they were more anecdotal. They were less
Mhm.
like a. So I wanted to,
Mhm.
I wanted to put the information. What I love is taking highly complex ideas and dissecting and diluting them down into I guess just sort of layman terms, like where it's like, okay, this may be super multifaceted, but I can make this really easy to understand.
Mhm.
And so I wrote the book over the space of about 5 years in my late 20s. I think I published it when I was about 30. I turned 40 last
Mhm.
week. So
Oh, congratulations.
I did a rewrite of the book in my 30s just to make sure everything was updated. And I'll probably do a post-COVID one, in a year
Yeah.
or so once the industry goes. But really, I just wanted it to be extremely factual and informational. It's how the union works, why headshots exist, and how to do them in the right way. And
Mhm.
and I also wanted to share why as a very important component, because once if someone just tells you how to do something, then you know how to do it, right? But if
Mhm.
someone tells you why it's being done, then you can use your own intelligence to decide which way it works best for you, so to communicate,
Mhm.
purpose of a headshot is XYZ, therefore this is why you're doing them this way. Then you don't just go, oh well, I've been told to do these 5 headshots. It's, I want to communicate this one thing. This has been a way that it's been recommended to me, but I'm going to do it in the way that, I'm going to finesse that in the way that I believe it will communicate that most effectively for me. And it allows people to have that freedom, and it sort of empowers actors rather than just telling them what to do like a parent or a teacher.
Mhm.
I never was good with teachers, and I don't really like being told what to do except by directors. And so for me, as soon as a director tells me to do something, I'm like, yes, of course, anything. But teachers, I was a terrible student. And so for me, I like to impart things in a way that gives I guess the student or the receiver of the knowledge the enough of the backstory information that they can make their own decisions.
And then you also do you're like a CEO of the Secret Actor Society.
Totally. Well, what happened was in 2019, I booked a huge series. Like, it was like a game changing, career making role on a show called Triangle, which was like, the pilot was like $14 million. The first season was
Mhm.
going to be 75 million. I'm the queen of the Vikings, and it's with all these amazing people the actors who are, I'm completely in love with every single one of them. There were 12 of us in the cast. All of them are now on huge movies and huge TV shows. And I've come back to Australia for the pandemic. But we shot the pilot, and I was like, well, this is it. This is my big break. I can't do the business coaching anymore. I can't
Mhm.
do the one-on-one helping with actors, because I need to finally focus just on my career. And then I was sitting in the hotel room in New Zealand on location thinking, well, what do I do? I've got all this knowledge and I don't want to keep it in my brain, because what's in the textbook is extremely informational and factual and textbook style. But then there's obviously so much nuance, and people a lot of the time will respond better to being in a coaching session or being in a video, watching a video,
Mhm.
where you can kind of explain things more succinctly. And the book itself is 300 pages, and it's as
Mhm.
concise as I could possibly make it. I did an entire edit where we took out 30,000 words without removing a single piece of information, just so
Wow.
we could get rid of the fluff. So with the site, I wanted to almost emulate what I do in a coaching session
Mhm.
with someone, but digitally. So because coaching with me is like hundreds of dollars an hour, and I
Mhm.
know that a lot of actors can't afford that. I'm on
Mhm.
this show where I'm getting thousands of dollars a day. So I'm
Mhm.
not, in a position. I do have a couple of people in like Africa and
Mhm.
third world countries where I coach them for free.
Wow.
But other than that, my price tag has to reflect the value of my time. And so
Mhm.
for me, I'm like, yeah, but now I feel mean because then there's so many actors who don't have the money for that, or if they do have the money for it, they should be spending that money on classes and workshops and
Mhm.
on their craft, not
Mhm.
necessarily on a business coach, unless they have that kind of cash flow. And
Mhm.
so I sort of thought, well, okay, what can I do? And so the Secret Actor Society, our goal is to always keep it under $20 a month. At the moment,
Mhm.
we're keeping it under $10 a month, just to make it really, really affordable for people, especially as we keep, building out the back end systems and making it even more thorough. But the idea was to get, you know, every other amazing business coach that I knew, every other person that teaches a specific area of the industry, because I'm a film and TV actress.
Mhm.
There's people who specialize in voice, people who specialize in accents, people who specialize in just working in commercials, commercial casting directors, people like that. And I sort of thought, well, what if we just sit down and figure out, because most actors, if you really look at it, there's probably about 2 or 3 thousand questions that an actor will tend to ask in a seminar or a panel or a coaching session. And so we literally sat down and wrote out 3,000 questions and put them all in a spreadsheet. And then we brought in different experts. We brought in over 25 different experts and we asked them all the different questions that they specifically would be the best to answer. So each expert answered between 100 and 200 questions. And they answered them all in like one, really like, I mean, 30-second to 4-minute videos. So it was really easy. You just question answer. You don't have to watch through this massive long
Mhm.
educational video to get what you need to know. And so now we have over 3,000 videos on the site, and it's
Wow.
growing every day. And we're implementing a new thing where it's an action item sequence from me, where literally it's as if you're in a coaching session with me. So you choose the level that you're at in your career out of, it's called the SAS success path. You choose the level that you're at in your career out of, well, it's essentially out of 8 levels, but then
Mhm.
like the top level's A-lister. So we're not going to do
Mhm.
action items for A-listers.
Mhm.
But and then the user chooses what level they're in, and then every week you get an action item, and I'm modeling those action items on exactly what I give my coaching clients in
Mhm.
sessions. So while it's not completely personalized, it's extremely specific to where you're at in your career, and it gives people really specific forward motion action that they can take to improve their career without wasting time. Because one of the biggest factors with acting is, for me, I wasted so much time and I wasted so much money. I went to the wrong people, I went to the wrong classes, and
Mhm.
I just took too long to figure things out. And
Mhm.
that burned my 20s, which is such an important period
Mhm.
for an actor. And if you look at my resume, I really only started working on professional work in 2013. I was
Okay.
I was working a lot on, oh no, 2008 really, which is when I started writing the
Mhm.
book. But it started really, really
Mhm.
coming in a lot in 2013 when I was in my 30s, because
Mhm.
I'd finally figured it all out. I'd finished the book, which
Mhm.
took up so much of my focus and energy and time. And literally, I released the book in 2012, 2013. The floodgates opened, and I just started working nonstop. And yeah, it's been yeah, it's been really amazing. But I wanted to share that because it's just so frustrating seeing actors get. There's so many con artists in Hollywood, man. Like it's
Mhm.
really
Yeah.
scary. And I just figure if I can get to them first, if I can find them first, they won't drop that.
Mhm.
Those thousands of dollars with someone who's really not giving. It's frightening. I've seen the most bizarre recommendations and advice coming to actors, and that's part of the reason we brought
Mhm.
in some experts. Because if I sit there answering a bunch of questions, then I'm giving my opinion based on my experience, and my opinions and my experience might not align with one of the viewers. So if I
Mhm.
bring in a few other experts to answer those same questions, all of a sudden the viewer's getting a different perspective on that one item, and they're going to be able to make the decision for themselves based on what sounds right for them in their heart.
Mhm.
And so yeah, and then we also brought in the top. Thank goodness. I mean, we decided to reach out because we had to pivot for COVID.
Mm-hmm.
We because the whole industry shut down. We decided to spend that time reaching out to the absolute top casting directors in the world, and these are people that like have cast Academy Award and Emmy nominated and winning projects, and they're the absolute best of the best. And we reached out to about 100 of them, and 25 of them, because had all this free time because of COVID, we did all these Zoom chats with them. And that, these people who are inaccessible, doing 16-hour days every day, 5-6 days a
Mm-hmm.
week, literally we're talking to them in their bedroom,
Mm-hmm.
in their house, because they're at home and they are excited to contribute to the acting community. And they just turn out to be the coolest people. They're so lovely, and they really wanted to help. So we did these hour-long interviews, or 45-minute long usually. So the 45-minute interviews are actually free for anyone to watch. But then we also did these really business specific questions that are for members only, that are behind the paywall, which
Mm-hmm.
all of it's so helpful. I mean, even if people just watch those free interviews on our app or on the website, my gosh, you gain so much knowledge. We did. I mean, I've been acting. I've done over 60 films and TV series, and for me, I was like floored at what I learned just doing these
Mm-hmm.
interviews. Yeah.
So you have there's like an official app where actors can go
Yeah.
and check out, and you also have like a YouTube channel as well with videos on.
No, we don't. We need to do a YouTube channel. See, I've been so busy. I really wanted to build out the app and the website, but we do have intentions of putting, because we've got 3,000 videos. We do have
Uh-huh.
intentions of putting it up on YouTube and maybe doing like a couple of posts a week with
Mm-hmm.
individual videos. Obviously, that'll be trickier to search for people because our app is sort of really specifically organized and things like that. But yeah, we really do want to start sharing that stuff on YouTube, so that actors
Yeah.
who can't even afford the $10 a month,
Mm-hmm.
they can sign up. And at the moment, I think our site might be $7.99 a month, or
Mm-hmm.
$6.99 a month, but we're putting it up to $9.99
Mm-hmm.
um, once those action items come out next week, because that's a new feature. We also do monthly Zoom calls because so it's a small group coaching with up to 20 members from the community, and they, it's usually with me. And they can, everyone we just ask questions. It's like a total conversation. I have everyone on gallery view, and we just chat and any career things that are going on for people. Everyone gets to ask their questions. Everyone gets to have that conversation, which kind of, it acts like a coaching session in a way. But usually in coaching sessions, I'm really mean to people, and I'm much friendlier in the Zooms. If people don't do the stuff I tell them to do, I'm like, okay, all right, well, we'll just copy paste all your action items and we can sit here for an hour because you didn't get anything done. So I'm much friendlier on the Zooms, and I don't do as much mindset work. When I'm in the coaching sessions, the thing that I was the most surprised about is how much, when you're in so when I've written this textbook and I've created all this informational content, but when people have subconscious blocks and they have emotional stuff going on that's stopping them from feeling they deserve success,
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes it doesn't matter how much information they have. They could be doing amazing auditions. They're just not going to allow success into their like energy field. And so for me, oftentimes my one-on-one coachings end up being really mindset based and really like working through people's pasts and what they feel that they are worthy of in life and in their career. So in the group Zooms, that's the one thing that we don't really kind of get into as much, but we'll do an exercise here or there.
Do you coach like child actors too, or is it mainly adult actors?
I have yet to have a child actor client.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, there's two experts on my site that really specifically work with child actors and with parents of child actors,
Mm-hmm.
Karen Workman and Bonnie Wallace. They're both kind of two of the premier experts they both have children who are working actors. One of them, I think Bonnie's daughter, is quite famous. So I would probably, if someone came to me that was under 15, I would maybe recommend that they go to Bonnie or Karen with their parents and see them instead, because they're going to really understand that child actor journey, which I wasn't in Hollywood when I was a kid. So for me, I would, heck, there's definitely stuff I could tell them, but I think they would be in better hands with Bonnie or Karen, if they had someone in there like, like a
Mm-hmm.
10-year-old or an 8-year-old. I swear all the time. Like it's hard for me with children because
Mm-hmm.
I uh I don't know. I haven't been. The irony is I'm 6 months pregnant right now, so
Oh wow.
for me, I'm like trying to learn not to swear as much and all that stuff. But yeah, but we have the content on the site because we brought Bonnie and Karen in as experts. We do have a ton of content for child actors on the site, and there's no swear words on the site, by the way. So
Mm-hmm.
children could definitely be members of the actual site and come into the group coaching. We do have a couple of kids that come into the group coaching Zoom, and so I'm good at watching my naughty words.
And do you offer like kind of like seminars about the different protocols now going on in Hollywood? Like during the Me Too era now. So actors can be more careful about certain things. They're dealing with certain clients that they feel that are pretty shady. So they have to
Oh,
deal
very
with
interesting.
harassment issues.
No, we could definitely talk about those in the group coaching Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
I no, we actually haven't covered that because it's not something that I've directly experienced, but that's actually a really good idea. Maybe I should bring in, there's people called intimacy coordinators,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
with the intimate side of things. We actually haven't had an intimacy coordinator on. It just hasn't been on my radar. But I will. I wish I had my pen near me so I could write that down because that's actually a really, really good idea. And yeah, to maybe bring in some of that because I've done a ton of like intimate scenes, and I
Mm-hmm.
think most actors end up doing that. And someone did ask me that the other day. They said in one of the group coaching Zooms that they had a make out scene with a guy, and how do they interact with their partner
Mm-hmm.
and make it okay. And so
Mm-hmm.
obviously I gave my feedback on that because I've experienced that. But yeah, I think we should bring in an intimacy coordinator to have that conversation.
And has like the industry like picked up a lot in Australia where you live, like with
Oh
film
yeah.
production and television
Yeah,
now?
so we came back here for COVID, for during COVID,
Mm-hmm.
and interestingly to do IVF. So we did 3 rounds
Mm-hmm.
of IVF last year, and so we were actually already planning to spend 2020 in
Mm-hmm.
Australia for that because
Mm-hmm.
IVF in Australia is covered a little bit by the government, and
Mm-hmm.
so because I have endometriosis, they pay for half of my IVF, and so we did 2 rounds in the States, and it was like 25 grand a round,
Mm-hmm.
all up with medication
Mm-hmm.
and everything in the end. Um, and then we came back to Australia, and it's 10 grand Australian, which is about 7,000 American. And then the government pays for half of it, and you get all your medication for free. And so we were just like, it's asinine to be paying those kinds of numbers out in the States.
Yeah.
And technology here is just as good, if not better. We have, because we're part of Southeast Asia, we have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of like really quite new technology where the
Mm-hmm.
companies are sharing from those
Yeah.
high tech
Mm-hmm.
countries nearby. And so, yeah, gosh, obviously, I think many people know that Marvel has just agreed to do all of their upcoming films here for the next 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be getting a lot of Australians will be getting, the 1 and 2 liners, the 5 liners. They're going to bring in actors from LA for all the leads,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, and all. Even if you've got more than one scene, I'd be very surprised if many Aussies were really getting in on stuff that's more than a couple of scenes. But
Mm-hmm.
hey, man, maybe we've got quite a few celebrities here now, and a lot of them have moved home. Obviously the Hemsworths are here, but there's so many others that even actors that you just don't realize are celebrities, and they're back here. I think Hugh Jackman lives here. I mean a ton of the names
Mm-hmm.
live back home. It's so Australia's like, if you imagine Hawaii, but like if all of America was Hawaii, and then there
Mm-hmm.
were 30 million or 25 million
Mm-hmm.
people. Like it's just, and everyone just lives at the beach. Like we
Mm-hmm.
just moved into like a tree house by the beach, about an hour north of Sydney, in a place called
Wow.
Avalon. And we're like, I'm literally like, it feels like I'm in Hawaii right now. Like I just like, it's so beautiful here. It's like this little village, and moving from the center of Hollywood, which is super intense, to
Mm-hmm.
here it's so crazy. And the great thing is, since COVID, auditioning in the room has become something that is less necessary. They will
Mm-hmm.
still, all of the casting directors were adamant that they will move back into in-room auditions.
Mm.
But because they really enjoy working with actors hands on, and that interaction and that personal interaction, and being able to give notes in the room, and that's their whole world. They don't want to do that
Mm-hmm.
from their house. They want to be in the room engaging, and especially when you get into those upper levels, every actor, a lot of the actors you bring in, might have known them for
Mm-hmm.
15, 20 years, and these are your friends at this point. So you're in there doing this collaborative process of molding an audition and making it really amazing together. That's so much more fun in the room. And then obviously they've got their social aspect of being in their office and everything like that. And it's but now everyone's being hired from tapes that they tape at their house. So many of the auditions I've done, in the past, even in the past few years before COVID, have been you record them at home and you send them in, and they choose the actor based on that, and you never have to go in the room. It used to be they might
Mm-hmm.
do a self tape and then they bring you in for the callback,
Mm-hmm.
but now they're hiring everyone for self tapes, and which means you can live anywhere in the world and still be
Mm-hmm.
active. But the difference is building roots in Los Angeles or
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta or any major market,
Mm-hmm.
Vancouver, um, and then having those relationships so that when they pitch me for a role, I've auditioned for these people already a bunch of times. They already know me. They know my work. They know my agent and my manager more than anything. So it means I'm actually getting the auditions. The challenge with being an actor isn't necessarily booking auditions, it's getting those high level auditions.
Mm-hmm.
Those high level auditions are so highly coveted. They're getting 2 or 3 thousand submissions for a one liner on a TV show.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So how do you get seen? And it's the quality of your agent and manager, which then if you take a step back from that, it's the quality of the work that you're doing in your demo reel, and the quality of your marketing materials, your headshot, making sure your resume looks professional so you can get that great agent and manager. And also, having that hustle at the beginning of your career where maybe you can't necessarily get into great representation, and you're going proactively to film festivals and panels and any screenings that come up. And when a friend says, hey, I've got a film in a festival, you don't just go, oh, good for them. You show up for them, because when you show up for them and when you show up 20 minutes, half an hour early to a screening, all of a sudden there's other filmmakers there. You're at a film festival, you're surrounded by industry people, you're going to start building your network, and you're able to get your own projects through relationships you have directly with filmmakers. You're able to get your own projects based on casting workshops that you do, where you're meeting casting directors and developing relationships that way. A third of all of my credits and about a third of all of my income that I've ever made from acting has come through people I met in paid casting workshops where I paid a fee. And yes, they're expensive. Some of them, there's some for $50 a workshop or whatever, but then there's others where it's $80 a workshop and you have to do two with the same person. But I've at least made 10x. So, if I've put in 10 grand, I've made over 100 grand
Mm-hmm.
on just that investment. So when you're talking about starting a business and getting a return on your investment, or investing and getting a return on your investment, if you were making 10x, you'd be, most people would be extremely happy over
Mm-hmm.
I've been in LA for 15 years now. Over a 15-year period, to say, well, I 10x'd my investment, that's
Mm-hmm.
pretty incredible. So knowing that the work needs to be done by the actor, because it's a combination of your relationships, your agent's relationships, and your manager's relationships. So yeah, that's a big factor too.
Hello, thanks for listening to the Erratic Dispatches podcast. We'll be back shortly after a brief break.
And what kind of feedback did you get, like, once your book was published? Did you get like people like reaching out to you, like emailing you, or met you at different social functions saying like, wow, I wish I had your book like years ago, and would have really just like saved me, or sped up the process, to
Yeah.
go through the crazy maze of the industry out there in LA?
Totally. Yes. So many. I mean, I wish I had my book when I first came to it. Like, Jesus, please give me my book 15 years ago. But yeah, I just, I had no idea how the industry really worked. And,
Mhm.
the only reason I was able to write the book actually was, or part of it was because I ended up just through the people I met, because of that initial thing at Cannes, I ended up working in project development and distribution, and I worked for 2 years at a post-production
Mhm.
company as interacting with people while they were on the back end of their film. I worked as an assistant for a casting director on a few feature
Mhm.
films, and I was seeing it from the other side. And so for me, I'm sitting there and I'm watching all of these actors come in thinking the industry, the quote unquote industry is one way, and realizing that the industry, isn't what actors perceive it to be, realizing,
Mhm.
how many misconceptions were kind of floating around the acting industry. And so I'd
Mhm.
hear actors, or even coaches giving their actors really advice that wasn't just bad advice, but damaging, literally the wrong advice.
Mhm.
And I see these agent letter templates that are out there in the interwebs, where it's like, oh, download this free template for a email to an agent or whatever, and they're terrible. Like it's going to make the agent never open your email. And
Mhm.
for me, and then I look at who's written it, and it's someone who's maybe been on in a section of the industry where they've never actually had to approach an agent for themselves, and
Mhm.
or it's not from an agent, it's just from someone who, or someone, you look them up and they don't have any credits as an actor. They've got like a couple of, they might have a bunch of indie credits, and they've got a terrible agent, and you're like, well, how could you possibly be giving advice and trying to share advice for something that you haven't mastered yourself?
Mhm.
And so for me, it's just, it's a funny thing seeing what's out there and just how misled actors can be. So yeah, I definitely wish I wish I had my book when I first started out. And I know, I've had so many people, so many emails, just lovely, lovely people just saying, how thankful they are, and how much they kind of have carried it with, literally carried it with them. It says at the start of the book to not treat it with too much reverence. Like literally, if you look at the cover of the book, obviously it's like, it looks like it's this trashed old manuscript, and that's the
Mhm.
idea, that you don't have to be precious with it. Just
Mhm.
trash it, just throw it in your handbag, throw it in the back seat of the car, have it, highlight sections, dog ear it, put post-it notes in to remember which section you were up to, and just have it with you as a guide. Don't treat it as something where you read it once and then put it back down. Refer to it when you need information.
Mhm.
And that's kind of what we're doing with the app. The whole idea of the app was, other than downloading what was in sort of my brain, and all of the brains of the experts I could find, for a low cost for actors, was just have it with you, when you're about to go into an audition or something's happening, you can excuse yourself to go to the bathroom and look up a question or whatever, and just kind of get that business coach in your pocket, business coach on hand whenever you need it.
Mhm.
So that you never feel like you're going to either not know what to do because you can't ask anyone, or call the wrong person, and the
Mhm.
wrong person to call with these things is always the actor who really hasn't done much, the friend from class who doesn't have the credits, because they're going to want to be helpful. They're going to give you
Mhm.
some amount of advice, especially if they have 2 or 3 credits more than you,
Mhm.
because they're going to feel like they know a little bit, and
Mhm.
they may. But to be honest, when you're talking about the difference between someone who's in your acting class and they've been in the industry for 4 or 5 years, or one of these experts, where all of our experts have been in the industry for at least 10 years, but most of them 20 or more years. You really, like, you're getting people with a breadth of experience where, they've kind of gone through that thinking it's one way, realizing it's another way, modifying that to what's actually going on, bending with the industry, figuring out, what actually then ends up working no matter what you think it is, and getting like a clean answer that comes from a place of power, not just a place of like, oh yeah, just do whatever you can to get the job. It's like, no, your personal power and boundaries are the priority, and then you work within the industry based on that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Anyway.
I like that story in your book where you talk about like if you go to audition, to like maintain like the accent of the character that you're auditioning for, and then afterwards it's okay to use your normal accent.
Totally. Yeah. For me, it's a big question, every
Hmm.
international actor asks it, because
Hmm.
you don't want to be inauthentic. You go in there with an American accent, you feel like you're a fibber. And so you're just like, oh man, like it just feels kind of like naughty. But then what I figured out is if someone says to me, where are you from? I'll just say Australia in my
Hmm.
American accent. And I have no
Hmm.
problem just
Hmm.
speaking an American accent, but saying, I'm from Australia, but you're not gonna hear that until later. And so, because what happens then is, and it's very rare that a casting director would even ask where you're from before the audition, but what ends up happening if someone hears you speaking in a foreign accent, even if if an American went into an audition faking an Australian
Hmm.
accent for the 2 minutes at the start, the casting people would hear them slipping in their American accent
Hmm.
during the audition, because your ear starts listening and hearing,
Hmm.
the imperfections that every voice has, that
Hmm.
every person will have in their, in their accent, or in their, in the way that they're speaking. And so they hear things that aren't really there. And so why put the filmmakers and the casting director in that position where they're hearing stuff that isn't really there? Just let them think you're American, and then at the end of it, at least let them only have heard you as an American, or as whatever the accent of the character is. And then at the end you can kind of drop into your real voice. And to be honest, it's like a magic trick. There's still, even now, with so many actors coming from England and Australia, all the filmmakers and casting people, usually they're still just like, oh wow, you're from Australia, and it's like you've done this like incredible magic trick, and they're so impressed. It's such a good moment.
Most actors that you've met, like who've come to LA to start working in industry, did most of them usually like try it out for like a certain period of time, or
Yeah,
decide to
people
move
give
on
up
to
so
other parts,
early.
like to the Europe or Asia or whatever?
Yeah, so look, Tony Robbins is really clear on something that's one of the main priorities in a person feeling good about something, and
Hmm.
that's progress.
Hmm.
So the sad thing is, what I see and what I've seen, there's one actor I'm thinking of in particular who, he spent a pilot season getting down to the top two for
Hmm.
about 15 roles, and then never actually booking anything. And he went back, and now he lives in Chicago, and he's one of the best
Hmm.
actors that I've ever seen. And he left, and he's doing community theater. He's loving it. I think he
Hmm.
runs a theater company, but he was on the precipice of breaking out and having this massive kind of career, and he chose to leave because he wasn't making progress. And on a smaller scale, at least he was getting into the rooms. On a smaller scale, when an actor first starts out in Hollywood, if they have the right advice, and if they're moving in the right direction, and they feel like they're making progress. I remember every year of my career for 15 years, every year I felt like it was better than the last year. I felt like I was making, and there was sort of baby steps in improvement, but I felt like every year I was making progress, and it was tangible. And even if I wasn't where I wanted to be, I felt like I was moving in the right direction toward that. And so if someone isn't making progress, doesn't matter how talented they are, they will almost invariably, it will be likely that they will leave the industry
Hmm.
after 5 or 6 years. And the problem with that is then they're going home, and then they have this regret, like, did I waste those five or
Hmm.
six years? Or, am I still meant to be in Hollywood? And for some of them, yeah, they are meant to be up on screen. There's so many people who are underrepresented on screen, even with
Hmm.
all of the Black Lives Matter and the,
Hmm.
really focusing on diversity in
Hmm.
film and TV. If you imagine, when you're watching a movie, there will be, even for you specifically, there will only be specific actors where you really resonate with them and go, oh hell yeah, man, like I get that guy, like I feel
Hmm.
like I am that guy. And it's our job as artists to do great work so that the people in the world who are of our type, as
Mhm.
not just even our physical type, but our energetic type, are in films and TV series, because
Mhm.
then they don't feel alone. You know, when there's a waitress, you know, out in middle America who's being, you know, going through a domestic abuse situation or something, and she feels like she has no way out, and she happens to see a movie about
Mhm.
a girl in a similar position who finds a way out, or has the balls, you know, not the, you know, I guess the tits to take that
Mhm.
to take that step,
Mhm.
and you know, really like change their life and face the unknown and make that big decision to whatever they need to do. But they do that because they saw that it was possible in a film. You know, films and TV series, they don't just entertain us, they give us hope. They create possibilities for us.
Mhm.
And if we don't see ourselves represented on screen, then oftentimes that might not click in for us. So you can
Mhm.
be sitting next to the same person, and a film's going to have, you know, they might be bawling their eyes out and it might not be hitting anything for you, and vice versa, because every actor will resonate with us differently, and every film story will resonate with us differently depending on our life experience. And so the problem when an actor leaves Hollywood because they weren't making forward progress is that actor and all the people who are going to resonate with them are out of the industry now. So
Mhm.
I see it as literally, you know, there's a possibility of lives kind of being ruined that
Mhm.
may have been rescued if that actor
Mhm.
had stayed. So for me, I think what we do is quite higher stakes than even a lot of actors give it credit for. Um, and I think that's why it makes me so sad when I guess the less sincere educators get a hold of actors as soon as they come to LA or before they come to LA, and you know, they get treated poorly and
Mhm.
taken advantage of either financially or in other ways,
Mhm.
and then they leave the industry. Because in my mind, I just think that's really sad. You know, what if Meryl Streep had been, you know, ripped off when she first came
Mhm.
to the industry instead
Mhm.
of finding back the studio? You know, like what if she had gone through a bad experience and left?
Yeah.
How many lives would have been less enriched? Or Sandra Bullock. I mean, God, Jesus, couldn't live my life without Sandra Bullock and Julia Roberts in my childhood.
I think it's becoming more common now for actors to, like, be their own, like, producer, to really develop their own projects, to start up their own production companies, so they can gain more control, so they can, get green light projects that they feel like other producers out there, they feel are maybe just too stupid or foolish to see, like, how valuable that project is.
Totally. Yeah. Look, you've got great questions, man.
Thanks.
It's a really fantastic question. Yes, and it's extremely important. You know, I was just in a writing session 2 days ago. I've got another writing session tomorrow for a series that I'm writing. When I first came to LA, I ended up writing. I guess I'm just a writer and an actor, because I wrote like 7 feature films
Mhm.
throughout my 20s while I was writing the book, because it just it gives you power, but it gives you power in your own, you know, career, and control in your own career. But what it also does is when you meet a filmmaker, they don't just see you as an actor with your
Mhm.
hands out saying, oh, you know, hopefully someone will make a project I can be in. And obviously, you know, when I say sort of with your hands out, we're not, you know, when we are up for jobs, we're not asking for anything. You know, you know, when you go into an audition, you're not asking them to give you a role like it's a favor that they're doing for you. You're going in saying, look, this is my take on a character. Let's collaborate. You know,
Mhm.
does this, you know, here's my sales pitch. Does this, you know, does this fit what you're doing? Okay, great. Let's make some art together. But with when you're networking and when you're out at film festivals and panels and things like that, if you're creating your own content, it gives filmmakers the feeling that you're kind of in the trenches as well, because we're storytellers. You know, it doesn't matter if we're playing a character in a story that someone else has written, or if we're creating those stories ourselves, or if we're going out and finding great writers and producing their stories so that we can act in them. You know, you don't have to write it yourself. There's a ton of, you know, writers out there who aren't actors and don't want to have any interest in being an actor, and they write these amazing films, and sometimes they'll write feature films and they'll want to get big finance, but sometimes they'll write short films and they'll
Mm-hmm.
be thrilled for someone to want to make it on a shoestring budget or whatever. So you can meet those people at short film festivals, at like I said, panels. There's so many easy ways to get access to screenplays that have been written by someone else who may be very, very happy for you to work on their project without having the budget to pay them a fee, just because they want to see their work get made and they want to be involved in something cool, or they want to help an actor out. Like, a short film, I've written short films in 3 hours. It's not like it's not a feature. You're not sitting there, and obviously the short film that's written in 3 hours probably wasn't very good, but you finessing it, it's still only it's not a huge time commitment to write a really strong short film script. So it's not like not getting paid for it is a disaster. You're getting to write and create a story and be involved in something. There's even 48-hour film festivals where you go in, they pair up, writers and directors and creators, and you go in with a bunch of friends and do it all together, and you start with no script, and by the end of the 48 hours you've shot an entire film, and it just reminds you how much you can do in a short period of time if you really kind of put your mind to it. But yeah, I think creating content is extremely important, and to be honest, every single actor that you see these days at the A-list level has their own production company, because that's the only way to maintain control in the industry and to be able to do whatever you want to do in your career. Because back in the day, actors were just owned by studios. I'm not I think before SAG-AFTRA, I don't even think they got residuals, and so it was really you're at the mercy of the studios back then, and then it went into the phase where you're at the mercy of the agents and the managers and the again, the studios and networks, but you're not even on the payroll of the studios and networks. You're just being hired per job. And then all of a sudden because back in the day, everyone was on payroll at the studios. You just get a fee for the year or whatever. You get sort of some sort of a salary, and it wasn't even they kind of just owned you. And now then it went through this phase where everyone's working and just working for these big production companies, and all of a sudden actors went, oh wait, if I actually start producing my own content, I've got all this money, I can create my own content, then I own a production company, and then my career is kind of guaranteed as long as I find great content.
And
so yeah, make great content, start that early.
I also like in your book you mentioned about the importance of networking, a lot for actors, about like if you have an actor friend who invites you to something, you never know, that could lead on to something else, a job for them or a job for you.
Yeah. Look, the number of times my husband is amazing at it. My husband booked a lead in a $2 million feature film because he went to a charity event and met the filmmakers there. And obviously they still made him audition, but they were seeing names for his role. And the film's called Wishman, and it's the story of the founder of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And it just completed a run on Netflix. It was really, really popular on Netflix. Kept going into that like top films or top watched bit on Netflix around the world. And he booked that from literally going to a like charity event, essentially a networking event. They met the filmmakers, established that relationship, booked the job, and his agent and manager had recommended him not even going to that event. They were like, because what happened was he originally went to Comic-Con, and he went with just went to go to a couple of the parties and obviously enjoy Comic-Con because he loves that stuff. And so his agent was like, don't do that, there's no reason to do it, it's going to be a waste of time, everyone thinks they're going to go there and meet people and they don't. And he met someone who then invited him to this charity event and introduced him to these amazing people, and it sort of changed his world, because now he's been attached to about 7 or 8 films where people have seen Wishman and have reached out to him to attach him as the lead in their films. My husband's more of a leading man, I'm more of a character actor. And so he gets to play all the like sexy romantic leads, and I'm just like the like I'm like the random like trashy trailer trash or artist or whatever, like just bizarre characters. I'm often the bad guy or like the soldier. I've got an audition today for a woman who's in a prison and she's like tormenting the lead. I'm just like a very different kind of actor. But yeah. But that's networking, and
Yeah.
much of it is, I booked that series actually through, because the casting directors, they're not superhuman. They forget that people exist. So there's a casting person Jeremy Gordon, who's one of my dearest friends, and I was at a casting workshop and I ran into him. I'm not going to pay to go to a casting workshop to see one of my friends. So I ran into him in the hallway in the break with the other person that I was seeing. And he was just like, oh, actually, I'm casting this project. You'd be perfect for. I'm not casting the role that's right for you, but I'll send your information to the Australian office. That's the people that are casting it. This is in LA. And so the audition came through a friend of mine who sent my stuff to the casting office he was affiliated with, because it was shooting in New Zealand. They were looking for Australian or New Zealand actors. It was like a worldwide search, but they were hoping for an Australian or New Zealand actor. And that's kind of how I ended up getting the role. But he's a close friend, and he hadn't thought of me for the Queen of the Vikings, which is like the easiest casting for me, who's someone who looks Slavic, has an extremely deep, strong voice, and looks like they could probably kick your ass, but is still like relatively, aesthetically on some level could play someone who's the queen. Like, come on. And I didn't pop into his mind until he ran into me somewhere. That's why being visible, being at those networking events, it's not just to meet new people, it's also to refresh relationships with people that you've already met before. So much of those networking events is seeing people and being like, hey, how you doing, and seeing them again. And the great thing is, it's people in Hollywood, man. Like, they're the coolest people. It's so many people get really intimidated going to these networking events that they forget, if someone's a dick, don't talk to them. Ignore, like, if someone's mean or rude or doesn't include you or is in any way negative, you blacklist them. Don't talk to them. They're a terrible person. Like, so just these networking events are filled with amazing people. There are going to be all types of personalities there. So yes, there are some people who are insecure enough to have an ego, but there are also other people who are really, really lovely and sweet and kind, and they'll end up being your best friends over time. For example, Jeremy's one of my favorite people. He's one of my closest friends, and he's someone I met in a casting workshop when I was like, or an audition or something, but when I was like 2006, years and years ago, 15 years ago. So yeah. Anyway, networking is where you build your friends. And also keep in mind, you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And that also expands out to, like the 20 or 30 people you spend the most time with. So if you're spending time with a bunch of non-working actors, that's where your energy is going to sit. But if you spend your time meeting filmmakers and becoming friends with working actors and just finding the really cool people that you really resonate with, not just deciding to be friends with the people you happen to be in acting class with. If you curate who you have surrounding you in your world, then you're going to find your own energy field will elevate. And that's where you start really accelerating in your career.
What do you find the biggest joys and challenges of working in the industry?
The joys are getting to just play these amazing roles. You can talk all this business stuff, but it's easy to forget. It's so much fun, when you're acting, and especially for me, I'm a little bit of a methody actor, and I have so much fun when I'm playing each character. I love it. And I build up the memories of the character, and you get to pretend to be other people. It's like playing a game, and it's so much fun. Being on set is so much fun. It's like a family. Like when we were in New Zealand, we were all going out to dinners together, and the breakfast, they always have like breakfast burritos at work, and the craft services is so yummy. If it's on indie films, a lot of the time it's like junk food, but on the bigger films, they have like, it's still a lot of junk food, but they have like, just so many tasty snacks and the lunches, and The things that aren't as fun, probably like the red carpety stuff. Then it's like if you think about it, when you're taking a selfie or when someone's taking a photo of you, like how to make yourself look okay. But when 30 people are taking a photo of you, it's like you don't like every angle could potentially be a terrible angle, and then it's going to go up on Getty Images and be out there in the world forever. So that's probably a little bit maybe more on the stressful side. But then even those parties are fun because there's free food, free drink. I don't drink, obviously. I haven't drunk for the past few years because I'm trying to get pregnant, or I am, now pregnant at 40. Yeah, it's even the parties are super. It's just that moment when you're on the carpet and you have to be like pretty and all that stuff and look elegant and not trip over and fall on your face. That is probably a little bit stressful. The bad bits are when you are doing auditions and you've forgotten, because we go through phases in our career when we forget that we love it, and if you're not prepared enough. That's really the only time auditions really suck, is if you're not prepared and you feel like a fraud. But when you're prepared for an audition, it's the most fun, because again, you're just playing with this character. If I look at all my auditions, I've been 300 or 400 different people in my life, and then the films and TV jobs, I've been probably 60 or 70. Ooh, my husband's come in for his, he's got a little interview that he's doing at 9:30.
So as you go ahead. Oh, so go ahead.
Oh, no, I really wasn't going to say anything interesting.
So as we wrap up our podcast, I know you mentioned about like a discount code that I could share with the listeners for this.
Yes, absolutely. So Brooklyn 60. So I'll read out the spelling, even though everyone knows how to spell Brooklyn. BROOKLYN 60. So the number 60, like as in 60 days. That'll give you 60 days of free membership to the Secret Actor Society when you sign up, only with the monthly membership. So sign up for the monthly membership. And you can try out the site. You'll get the first 45 pages of the Hollywood Survival Guide for free. If you end up staying for 100 days, we send the full book. So I guess it's just over 3 months. Then you get a full copy of the Hollywood Survival Guide for actors in PDF form. And yeah.
Hello. Thanks for listening to the Erratic Dispatches podcast. We'll be back shortly after a brief break. Thanks again for tuning in to this latest episode of the Erratic Dispatches podcast, featuring an interview with Kym Jackson, author of The Hollywood Survival Guide for Actors and founder of the Secret Actor Society. Kym has been generous enough to offer 2 months of free use of the Secret Actor Society website using the code of Brooklyn 60. That's BROOKLYN numeral 60. And also, the first 2 listeners for this podcast that are interested in getting free copies of her book, The Hollywood Survival Guide for Actors, please be sure to shoot me an email, which is founder@brooklyndigitalmediainc.com. That's founder@brooklyndigitalmediainc.com. And Kym will definitely send the copies of her book from her Australia to anywhere where you live. All right. Well, thanks again for listening, and I'll be back soon with a new episode. Take care. Bye-bye.